Breakfast at Tiffany's is about sex workers who terrorize a Japanese erotic photographer. It's actually about two hookers who fall in love.
Oh, that's
It's a double Pretty Woman.
That's sweet.
Audrey Hepburn was the original kind of quirky hot girl.
Okay.
But the guy above her is just having a horrible time. The guy above her is Mickey Rooney in the most over-the-top Japanese makeup anyone's ever seen. And that's what people remember. But I think they had to visually represent his descent into madness because she was such a bad neighbor. It's almost Kafka-esque.
Okay.
Like the substance was about how it's so hard being pretty that Demi Moore turns into a hemorrhoid or whatever. This is about a woman who's being so inconsiderate that her neighbor just keeps getting more Japanese. So they had to like be able to show that. Basically, this guy gets so Japanese, it would be racist to ask a Japanese guy to be this Japanese. So they're doing the least racist thing. The opening scene is Audrey Hepburn. She looks beautiful. The way she looks in this movie is iconic. Her name's Holly Golightly, and she goes to Tiffany's in New York, and she eats breakfast staring at the display window at Tiffany's.
Is that really what the title's a reference to?
She goes to Tiffany's, and she eats a Danish.
That's it?
And that's the story of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
What?
Good night, everybody. She eats breakfast at Tiffany's, and then she goes and takes a dump at the Port Authority. She's seeing all the sights. But they don't want to call the movie Audrey Hepburn in My Dump at the Port Authority. Oh, no, then she goes home, and one of her Johns is outside, and he follows her in, and he's like, hey, baby, you left last night. It seems like she's an escort.
Okay.
And she's kind of trying not to sleep with these guys, but she's using her beauty to get money all the time. She keeps mentioning that the main way she gets money is rich guys give her $50 to go to the ladies' room.
What? No.
I don't know what that's code for.
Uh-huh.
Holly Golightly. But for $50, Holly will go heavy on your chest. So this one guy's like, don't you like me? I paid for your dinner. And she's like, okay, I gotta go. Bye. She keeps losing her key. So she keeps buzzing the Japanese guy up top. She buzzes his apartment to let her in. And every time he's like, I protest. He's blustery and he's very Japanese and he's just so stressed out. Mr. Yunioshi. He's like, hey, if you're nice to me, I'll let you take those pictures of me that we talked about.
Really?
And he's like, oh. So then Paul moves in. Actually, he doesn't have a key either, so he buzzes her. This is when he comes into her world. She's a whirlwind. She's a mess. The phone's in the suitcase. She hasn't named her cat. And she says that she has to go to Sing Sing, the prison.
The prison?
Because she kind of got another gig. They pay her $100 to go talk to Sally Tomato. He's a gangster he's in prison, and her gig is she just goes and talks to him. But then he gives her a weather report, which is obviously a coded message. He's using her to get coded messages out of prison for what ends up to be his narcotic syndicate. Then a woman comes to visit Paul, and we learn that he has a sugar mommy. She has a rich husband who she's cheating on with him, and she's just paying for him. And his dream, we find out, is to be a writer. There's a big wacky 60s party at Holly's place. One of her friends shows up with a hot Latin guy. It's Jose, and he's a Brazilian diplomat. The party gets crazy. A woman's crying in the mirror. A really tall lady falls down. Holly yells timber. A woman's hat starts on fire. This is what parties were like before they let black people in them. It gets really goofy. Yeah. Sugar mommy shows up for Paul, and she's like, I think a man's following me. And he's like, well, I'll get to the bottom of this. And he walks outside. The guy follows him. He goes to Central Park. The guy sits down beside him. This guy says his name's Doc. No, he's older. He's a horse doctor from Tulip, Texas. He has a picture of Holly Golightly. He says he married her when she was 14.
Oh.
She ran away from home, and she left her children.
Her children?
She got to get back to the children. He keeps saying children. They're not her children. They're stepchildren. He's like, yeah, I asked her to marry me when she was 14, and she said, well, sure, I never been married before.
Oh, no.
And he's like, man, kids say the darndest things when you ask them to marry them, huh? Am I right, folks? Anyway, and he's like, hey, would you talk to her? Oh, and he said her name is Lula May. Her name's Lula May. That's her real name. Then she tells him, like, I'm not going to go with you. You can't love a wild thing, Doc. And then he's like, fine. He leaves on the bus. So then they come home. Japanese Mickey Rooney just freaks out every time they come home. What do you got?
Oh!
Okay, there we go.
Oh! Hurry!
Wait a second. They named her Holly Golightly because that's the funniest thing for a Japanese guy to say. They just picked, this was the original Lululemon. And they're like, you know what? Let's have fun. Let's do poor people things together. They go to the library. They shoplift. They have sex.
Hey!
Scratch off lottery tickets. They lost fingers improperly using fireworks. Then he finds Holly Golightly at the library, and she tells him that she's going to marry the Brazilian diplomat, Jose. Turns out he's rich, too.
Oh.
And now they have another whore off.
Nice.
Where he's like, yeah, well, you know what? Here's my $50 check so you can go to the bathroom. You're a bigger whore than I am. So then she invites him over for dinner because Jose's out of town. When they get back to her place, Mr. Yunioshi is there, and he's let in the police.
No.
Because she's being indicted for sending the coded messages for Sally Tomato.
Oh,
the headline is, Tomatoes, Tomato? 'Cause they used to call women tomatoes?
a tomato?
Yeah, because you're trying tomato. And then he bails her out. Okay, so they're in a cab. He's going to take her to a hotel. And she says, no, take me to the airport. He's bailed her out. And he's like, the airport? And she's like, yeah, I got a ticket to Brazil. And he's like, but you're under indictment. And she says, yeah, but this guy's going to be the next president of Brazil. I'll have diplomatic immunity or something.
Right.
And he's like, well, actually, you got a note outside your apartment. And then the diplomat, the note says, hey, you're great, but you're under indictment. I can't be involved in this whole tomato incident.
No!
So fuck you.
God.
And then she says, go to the airport anyway. I'm going to go to Brazil. See, whenever she's in trouble, her gold digger instincts kick in. And she's like, when I get to Brazil, mail me the name of the 10 richest Brazilians. Because Holly's going to town on South America.
All right.
He says, I'm in love with you. So she says, don't put me in a cage. And he says, it's not a cage, it's love. And she says, it's the same thing.
Oh.
And she says, I can't be caged or defined. She says, I'm not Holly Golightly or Lula May. I'm a third, even dumber name I haven't thought of yet. I'm Franny Titty Muffin or whatever. I'm a series of sounds. Beep, beep, douche. I'm another name that's funny when Japanese people say it. I haven't thought of yet. I'm just a bunch of L's and R's. That's who I am inside. I'm Mallory Vroom Vroom. Try to say that, you Japanese assholes. I need to think of names the Japanese people can't say. It's my life's work. She's just raising money for Asian hate, this whole movie. And she's like, no, I don't belong to anybody, and no one belongs to me, even my cat. The whole movie, she hasn't named her cat.
Oh, right.
Because she doesn't want to own anybody. And she's like, we don't belong to each other. In fact, she's like, to prove my point, I'm going to let the cat go. So she pulls over. It's raining. They let the cat out down an alley. And he's like, let me out. And he gets out and he says, you know what, lady? You're chicken. You can't admit that life is a fact and people do fall in love. Oh. And they do belong to each other. You're trying to stay out of a cage, but your loneliness is a cage. Oh. And committing to someone is the only chance at real happiness. And that guy upstairs is just going to keep getting more Japanese until you fucking knock it off. And then he leaves, and then the taxi stops. And Audrey Hepburn does a romantic comedy run.
Yes!
We got one. In the rain, no less. She runs in the rain, and he's looking for the cat. Now, she's looking for the cat. She commits to looking for the cat because the cat symbolizes caring for something. The cat is their love. This is a movie of symbols. And she finds the cat in the rain. It's a movie of symbols, Jordan.
Yes.
Her pussy gets wet. And then the movie ends. That's what we were waiting for. And also famously, this movie inspired the song Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because the song Breakfast at Tiffany's is about a guy who a woman broke up with him and he doesn't understand why. And the last thing he remembers is that he recommended that they watch Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I just think, what if that's a song about, what if his girlfriend was Asian? Like he doesn't understand why she left him. And the song is him putting it together. He's like, I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? Looking back on it now, that was pretty fucked up. Because I said, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? And that girl was Asian. And I haven't seen her since. As I recall, you kind of liked it.
Yes.
The past was doing its best.
That's the theme song.
Leave them alone. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. They were doing their best.